Colonel Marcus Kane stood at the edge of the massive training ground on Kepler Station, watching alien recruits from across the galaxy practice their combat drills. At 73 years old, his weathered face showed every battle he had fought, every war he had survived. His gray hair was cut military short, and his Earth-issued uniform looked ancient compared to the sleek armor worn by the other species there. Galactic Defense Force had been formed 5 years ago when humanity finally joined the greater galactic community. Earth was considered a backwater planet, and humans were seen as primitive warriors who still used chemical propulsion weapons, while other species had moved on to plasma rifles, energy shields, and quantum ammunition. "Look at the old human," whispered Zextar, a tall blue-skinned Valyrian officer to his squad mates. They actually gave him a command position. What's next, putting cave dwellers in charge of starships? The other aliens laughed quietly. There was Korthak, a massive reptilian saurian whose scales could deflect most energy weapons. Beside him stood Lyra, a graceful ethereal whose people could manipulate matter with their minds. The newest member was Jinvo, a crystalline being from the outer rim whose body could absorb and redirect energy attacks. Marcus heard their whispers but said nothing. He had dealt with prejudice before. When he first joined the Earth military 40 years ago, they said he was too old, too slow, too set in his ways. He proved them wrong in the Martian Rebellion, the asteroid belt conflicts, and dozens of smaller battles across human space. General Thane, a distinguished Altarian with silver skin and 4 arms, approached Marcus. "Colonel Kane, I trust you understand your position here is largely ceremonial. Your species' military experience is limited to your own solar system. These recruits have been trained in galactic warfare standards." Marcus nodded respectfully. "I understand, sir. I'm here to learn as much as to teach." The general's expression softened slightly. He had reviewed Marcus's file and found it impressive by human standards, but human standards were considered quite low in galactic military circles. "Very well. Today's exercise is a tactical simulation. Pirates have taken control of a mining station. Your squad must retake it with minimal civilian casualties." The simulation chamber activated, creating a perfect holographic replica of an asteroid mining facility. The alien squad members checked their plasma weapons and energy shields. Their equipment hummed with advanced technology that could punch through reinforced metal and create defensive barriers from pure energy. Marcus reached into his old leather holster and pulled out what looked like a museum piece to the others. It was a modified M1911 pistol, an ancient human design that fired small metal projectiles using chemical explosives. The other squad members stared in disbelief. "Surely you're joking," Zextar said, his blue skin darkening with amusement. "That's not even a real weapon. It's like bringing a sharp stick to fight starships." Korthak's massive head tilted as he examined the primitive gun. "My people abandoned such crude tools before we learned to fly. How does it even work without energy cells?" Marcus pulled back the slide, chambering around with a satisfying metallic click. "It works just fine. Been working for over 600 years. Lyra, the ethereal, let her consciousness brush against the weapon briefly. "I sense no quantum field, no plasma core, no energy matrix. How can it possibly damage anything?" "You'll see," Marcus said quietly. The simulation began. The mining station materialized around them, complete with narrow corridors, control rooms, and civilian areas where hostages were being held. The enemy pirates were represented by hard light holograms that could simulate real damage and threat responses. Zextar took point with his plasma rifle, its blue energy humming as it charged. Korthak activated his personal shield generator, creating a shimmering barrier around his massive form. Lyra began focusing her mental powers to manipulate the environment, while Jinvo started absorbing ambient energy from the station's power systems. They moved through the first corridor efficiently, their advanced weapons making short work of the holographic pirates. Energy beams crossed the air, shields flared with impacts, and the aliens worked with practiced coordination. Marcus followed behind, his ancient pistol still holstered. The others assumed he was staying back because his primitive weapon would be useless at long range. They were partially right, but for different reasons than they imagined. The squad reached the first major obstacle, a heavily fortified control room where pirates had set up defensive positions. The doorway was narrow, covered by overlapping fields of fire. Energy weapons would light up the entrance like a beacon, alerting every enemy in the area. "Standard breach protocol," Zextar announced. Korthak provides shield cover, Lyra disrupts their equipment, Jinvo overloads their weapons, and I clear the room with suppressing fire. Wait, Marcus said softly. Let me try something different. The aliens looked at him skeptically, but General Thane's voice came through their communicators. Allow Colonel Kane to demonstrate human tactics. Consider it educational. Marcus approached the doorway from an angle, moving with surprising quiet for someone his age. He pulled out his pistol and did something none of the aliens expected. He aimed it not at the enemies, but at the metal wall beside the doorway. The gun barked once, a sharp crack that seemed pathetically weak compared to the whining energy weapons. But something impossible happened. The bullet, a simple piece of lead and copper, punched through the advanced alloy wall like it was paper. On the other side, they heard a surprised shout as the ricochet took down one of the pirates. Impossible, whispered Jinvo. That wall has molecular cohesion fields. Energy weapons require sustained fire to penetrate it. Marcus fired twice more, each shot finding gaps in the fortification that energy weapons couldn't exploit. The bullets bounced off surfaces in ways that plasma beams never could, taking out enemies from unexpected angles. Within 30 seconds, the room was clear without any of the aliens firing a shot. Korthak's massive jaw hung open. How did your primitive projectile penetrate our advanced materials? Marcus reloaded his pistol with practiced ease. Sometimes, Korthak. The old ways work because they're simple. Your energy shields and advanced armor are designed to stop energy weapons. They're not designed to stop a chunk of metal moving at 1,200 feet per second. The simulation continued, and with each encounter, Marcus demonstrated tactics that the aliens had never considered. He used the environment differently, exploited weaknesses in advanced technology that nobody had thought to protect against, and showed that sometimes the most sophisticated solution wasn't the best one. By the end of the exercise, the alien squad was looking at the old human with new respect. They had completed the mission faster, and with fewer casualties than any squad in the previous month of training. As they left the simulation chamber, Zextar approached Marcus hesitantly. Colonel, I owe you an apology. I underestimated your methods. Marcus smiled and holstered his ancient weapon. No offense taken, son. But remember this lesson. In war, it's not always about having the best technology. Sometimes it's about thinking differently than your enemy expects. General Thane watched from the observation deck, his expression thoughtful. Perhaps there was more to learn from these humans than he had originally believed. Word of Marcus Kane's performance in the training simulation spread quickly through Kepler Station. Within hours, junior officers from dozens of species were requesting transfers to observe his methods. The old human had done something that military theorists claimed was impossible. He had found fundamental flaws in modern galactic warfare doctrine. Dr. Villana, the station's chief military scientist, was particularly intrigued. As a member of the highly intelligent cerebral species, she possessed an advanced mind capable of processing complex military data at incredible speeds. She requested a private meeting with Marcus the next morning. Colonel Kane, she said, her large eyes blinking rapidly as she processed information. I've reviewed the simulation data 17 times. By all calculations, your projectile weapon should have been ineffective against modern defensive systems. Marcus sat across from her in the station's briefing room, his old pistol disassembled on the table between them. Each component looked crude compared to the sophisticated weapons surrounding them. What makes you think it should have been ineffective? Energy dispersion calculations show that kinetic weapons lack the focused power to penetrate molecular cohesion fields. Your bullets should have been stopped completely. She picked up one of the brass cartridges, examining it with scientific curiosity. That's where you're making your mistake. Doc, Marcus said, reassembling his weapon with practiced motions. You're thinking about energy dispersion, but kinetic impact works differently. When I fire this bullet, all the energy is concentrated in a tiny point moving very fast. Your shields are designed to spread energy across their entire surface. Dr. Villana's eyes widened as she understood. The focused kinetic impact exceeds the shield's ability to distribute the force. It's like the difference between spreading butter with a knife versus stabbing with a needle. Exactly, and there's more. Marcus loaded a fresh magazine. Your people have been fighting the same way for so long that you've forgotten to defend against anything else. Every alien species I've met uses energy weapons, so everyone builds defenses against energy weapons. Meanwhile, in the station's officer quarters, Zextar was having his own revelations. He had spent the night researching human military history through the Galactic database. What he found challenged everything he thought he knew about primitive warfare. The humans had fought wars continuously for thousands of years. Not the ritualized conflicts common among galactic species, where advanced civilizations settled disputes through limited engagements with agreed-upon rules. Humans had waged total war against each other, developing tactics born from desperation and necessity. "Look at this," Zextar told his roommate Korthak, showing him a holographic display. The humans fought something called World War II. They had entire continents covered in battles, millions of soldiers, thousands of different weapons, tactics changing constantly. Korthak studied the historical data with growing amazement. These numbers can't be correct. They're showing casualty figures higher than the total population of most civilized worlds. That's just one war. They've had hundreds of them. Zextar scrolled through centuries of human conflict. They've fought in space, underwater, in frozen wastelands, burning deserts, and jungle environments that would kill most species. They've never stopped adapting. The two aliens spent hours reviewing human military innovations. Camouflage that made soldiers nearly invisible. Explosives that could level buildings. Vehicles that could cross any terrain. But most impressive were the tactics, flanking maneuvers, psychological warfare, combined arms operations, and strategic thinking that treated entire planets as single battlefields. The next morning brought an unexpected development. Admiral Korax, commander of the 3rd Galactic Fleet, arrived at Kepler Station unannounced. The massive draconian leader stood 8 feet tall, his scaled hide bearing scars from numerous battles. He was known throughout the galaxy as one of the most formidable military minds of his generation. "I want to see this human who thinks he can teach galactic warfare," Admiral Korax announced to General Thane. His voice rumbled like distant thunder, and his yellow eyes held barely concealed skepticism. Within an hour, Marcus found himself standing before the Admiral in the station's main conference room. Officers from a dozen species filled the seats, all eager to witness this encounter between the legendary draconian commander and the aging human. "Colonel Kane," Admiral Korax said, his voice formal and cold. "I've read reports of your recent performance. Some claim you've discovered revolutionary tactics. Others suggest you simply exploited weaknesses in a training simulation." Marcus stood at attention. "Admiral, I demonstrated that kinetic weapons can be effective against modern defenses. The implications extend beyond training simulations. Kinetic weapons," the Admiral repeated, his tone dismissive. "Projectiles fired by chemical explosions. Technology my people abandoned before we achieved spaceflight. You seriously believe such primitive tools have military value?" "I believe every tool has value when used correctly, sir." Admiral Korax's eyes narrowed. "Very well. I propose a demonstration, a live fire exercise against actual military-grade defenses. Not holographic simulations, but real shields, real armor, real targets." Murmurs ran through the assembled officers. Live fire demonstrations were rare and dangerous. The Admiral was clearly trying to prove that human weapons were useless against true galactic military technology. "I accept," Marcus said without hesitation. An hour later, they assembled in the station's testing facility. Admiral Korax had ordered the setup of various defensive systems: personal energy shields, vehicle armor plating, defensive barriers, and even a small automated turret system. "Choose your targets." "Colonel," the Admiral said, gesturing to the array of galactic military hardware. "Show us the power of your primitive weapons." Marcus approached the first target, a personal energy shield generator of the type used by elite galactic soldiers. The shimmering barrier could stop plasma bolts, laser beams, and particle accelerator rounds. He raised his pistol and fired a single shot. The bullet passed through the energy field as if it wasn't there, striking the generator behind it. Sparks flew as the device overloaded and shut down. "Impossible," whispered an officer. "That shield stops everything." "It stops energy," Marcus corrected. "It doesn't stop matter." He moved to the next target, a section of starship hull armor designed to withstand direct hits from naval-grade weapons. The metal was layered with force dispersion fields and molecular reinforcement. Marcus fired 3 quick shots. The first bullet punched through the outer layer. The second widened the hole. The third passed completely through the armor and embedded in the wall behind it. Admiral Korax's expression began to change from skepticism to troubled interest. The armor's integrity should have held against kinetic impact. Your armor is designed to spread impact across its entire surface, Marcus explained, ejecting his empty magazine and inserting a fresh one. But bullets don't work that way. They concentrate all their energy into a tiny point of contact. Eventually, something has to give. The demonstration continued with increasingly impressive results. Marcus disabled the automated turret by shooting its sensors instead of trying to punch through its heavy armor. He ricocheted bullets off angled surfaces to hit targets that were completely protected from direct fire. Most remarkably, he showed how kinetic weapons could be effective at ranges where energy weapons lost their power. Energy weapons dissipate over distance, Marcus explained as he hit a target 500 meters away. The farther they travel, the weaker they get. But this bullet has the same impact whether the target is 50 meters or 500 meters away. By the end of the demonstration, the assembled officers were silent. Admiral Korak stood motionless, his predatory eyes fixed on the human who had just challenged fundamental assumptions about modern warfare. Dr. Villana was frantically taking notes, her advanced mind racing through the implications. Colonel, if kinetic weapons are this effective, why did galactic civilization abandon them? Marcus holstered his weapon and faced the crowd of alien officers. Because you didn't need them. When everyone uses energy weapons, energy defenses work perfectly. You've been fighting each other with the same technology for so long that you forgot there were other ways to fight. Admiral Korak stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the smaller human. For a moment, tension filled the room as the two warriors studied each other. Colonel Kane, the Admiral said slowly, I believe we need to talk. Admiral Korax led Marcus to his private quarters aboard the flagship Dominion, a massive draconian battleship that had arrived shortly after the demonstration. The ship's corridors were built for beings much larger than humans, making Marcus feel like a child walking through a giant's castle. The Admiral's private study was filled with tactical displays showing fleet positions across 3 star systems. Battle trophies from dozens of campaigns lined the walls, each one marking a victory that had added to Korax's legendary reputation. Sit, Colonel, the Admiral said, gesturing to a chair that automatically adjusted to human proportions. I want to understand something. Your weapon demonstration was impressive, but I need to know if this is merely a curiosity or something more significant. Marcus settled into the chair, noting how the Draconian's quarters reflected a mind focused entirely on military matters. What do you want to know, Admiral? The Galactic Defense Force has kept peace for over 2 centuries using standardized tactics and equipment. Every species contributes their specialized abilities: cerebral intelligence, ethereal matter manipulation, saurian resilience, Valyrian speed. But the underlying approach to warfare remains consistent across all member species. Korax activated a holographic display showing recent battle reports. 3 months ago, we encountered something that changed everything. Pirates in the Outer Rim have begun using tactics we cannot counter. They strike our convoys, disable our escorts, and vanish before our fleets can respond. The hologram shifted to show damaged starships and destroyed cargo vessels. The attack patterns were unlike anything in the Galactic military database. These aren't ordinary pirates, the Admiral continued. They've developed new strategies that neutralize our technological advantages. Their ships are older, their weapons are less sophisticated, but somehow they're winning. Marcus studied the battle data with growing interest. The pirate attacks showed signs of tactical innovation that reminded him of human military history. Have you identified their species? That's the problem. Intelligence suggests they're a mix of outcasts from various worlds, but they're being led by someone who understands warfare in ways we don't. Their leader calls himself the Shadow Commander, and he's turned a ragtag group of criminals into an effective military force. Admiral Korax leaned forward, his yellow eyes intense. Colonel Kane, after seeing your demonstration today, I believe your species might possess knowledge that could help us counter this threat. Will you examine these battle records and tell me what you see? Marcus spent the next 2 hours reviewing detailed reports of pirate attacks across 17 different systems. The more he studied the data, the more familiar the patterns became. Admiral, these pirates are using human military doctrine. Impossible. Humans haven't been in contact with the Outer Rim. Maybe not officially, Marcus said, highlighting specific sections of the battle reports. But look at these tactics. hit-and-run attacks against supply lines, dividing larger forces to fight on multiple fronts, using inferior technology in ways that neutralize enemy advantages. This is pure human warfare. He stood up and began pacing, his military mind analyzing the strategic picture. Your standard galactic warfare is based on direct confrontation between organized fleets. You meet in space, exchange fire with equal forces, and the side with better technology wins. It's been working for 2 centuries because everyone follows the same rules. And these pirates don't follow the rules, Admiral Corax concluded. Exactly. They're fighting the way humans have always fought when outmatched. They avoid direct confrontation, strike at weak points, and force you to spread your forces thin. Your ships are designed for fleet battles, not guerrilla warfare. The Admiral's expression darkened. If they're using human tactics, does that mean there's a human leading them? It's possible. Or someone who studied human military history. Marcus returned to the data displays. Either way, you're not going to beat them using conventional galactic strategy. Admiral Corax activated his communication system. General Thane, report to my quarters immediately. Bring Colonels Zextar, Korthak, and the ethereal officer. Within minutes, the senior officers assembled in the Admiral's study. General Thane looked nervous about being summoned so urgently, while the others appeared curious about the sudden meeting. Gentlemen, Admiral Corax announced, we have a situation that requires unconventional solutions. Colonel Kane has identified the tactics being used by the Outer Rim pirates. They're employing human warfare strategies that our forces aren't equipped to counter. Zextar shifted uncomfortably. Admiral, with respect, human tactics are primitive compared to galactic standards. Surely our technological superiority can overcome any strategic disadvantage. That's exactly the kind of thinking that's been losing us ships, Marcus interjected. You keep trying to fight these pirates the way you've always fought, but they're not fighting back the same way. He activated the tactical display and began explaining the concept of asymmetric warfare. When my people fought wars on Earth, the weaker side never tried to match the stronger side's advantages. Instead, they found ways to make those advantages irrelevant. The assembled officers listened with growing attention as Marcus described guerrilla tactics, logistics warfare, and psychological operations. These concepts were foreign to galactic military thinking, which had evolved during centuries of conflicts between equally advanced civilizations. In human history, small forces regularly defeated larger ones by changing the rules of engagement, Marcus continued. The American Revolution, the Vietnam War, countless insurgencies and resistance movements. The key is making the enemy fight your kind of war instead of their kind. General Thane studied the pirate attack patterns with new understanding. You're suggesting that our massive fleets and advanced weapons are actually disadvantages against this enemy. I'm saying they're the wrong tools for this job. You're using battleships to hunt mosquitoes. Marcus highlighted several successful pirate escapes. Look at this pattern. They attack your heavy cruisers with fast, lightly armed ships. Your cruisers can destroy any single pirate vessel, but they can't catch them. Meanwhile, the pirates are targeting your supply ships and communication relays. Korthak's massive frame shifted as he processed this information. So they're not trying to defeat our fleets directly. They're trying to make our fleets ineffective. Now you're getting it. They want you to keep sending big, slow, expensive ships to protect convoys. Every ship you assign to convoy duty is a ship that can't be used for offensive operations. They're bleeding your fleet strength without fighting a single major battle. Admiral Corax had been silent during this explanation, his tactical mind working through the implications. Colonel Kane, if you understand their strategy, can you develop countermeasures? I can try, but it would mean changing how your forces operate. Your officers would need to learn new tactics, and your ships would need to be used in ways they weren't designed for. The Admiral's eyes narrowed as he considered the risks. Changing centuries-old military doctrine was a massive undertaking that could backfire catastrophically. But the alternative was watching his fleet slowly bleed away to an enemy he couldn't catch. What would you need? Marcus looked around the room at the assembled alien officers. I'd need a small, fast task force commanded by officers willing to think differently, and I'd need permission to train them to fight like humans. You want to teach galactic officers to fight like primitives? General Thane asked, his tone skeptical. I want to teach them to win, Marcus replied. Sometimes that means fighting like primitives. Admiral Korak stood up, his massive frame dominating the room. Colonel Kane, I'm giving you operational command of a special task force. Your mission is to locate and neutralize the Shadow Commander using whatever methods you deem necessary. The other officers exchanged uncertain glances. Giving an unknown human operational command was unprecedented in galactic military history. Sir, Zextar began carefully, wouldn't it be more appropriate to assign human officers to support positions under experienced galactic command? Under normal circumstances, yes, the Admiral replied. But these aren't normal circumstances. We've been fighting this enemy for 3 months using the best officers and equipment in the galaxy, and we're losing. Colonel Kane represents a different approach. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He was about to take command of alien officers and lead them against an enemy that had already proven capable of defeating conventional galactic forces. I'll need volunteers, Marcus said. Officers willing to learn tactics that go against everything they've been taught. It won't be easy, and some of your colleagues will think you're crazy for following a human. Admiral Korak smiled grimly. Colonel, after today's demonstration, I think my officers are beginning to realize that crazy might be exactly what we need. 2 weeks later, Marcus stood on the bridge of the GDF Vanguard, a modified frigate that had been assigned to his special task force. The ship's crew was the most diverse collection of aliens he had ever worked with, and none of them had volunteered for conventional reasons. Zextar had requested the transfer because he wanted to prove himself capable of advanced tactical thinking. The blue-skinned Valerian believed that learning human warfare might give him an edge in future promotions. He served as Marcus's executive officer, though he still struggled with some of the more unconventional concepts. Korthak had joined because he was bored with standard galactic military operations. The massive Saurian craved real combat challenges, and Marcus's promise of dangerous missions appealed to his warrior nature. His thick scales made him ideal for boarding operations and ground combat. Dr. Valana had transferred from her research position because she was fascinated by the scientific implications of kinetic weapons and human tactical theory. She served as the task force's intelligence officer, using her advanced analytical abilities to study pirate behavior patterns. The newest member was Captain Lisa Torvin, a human engineer who had been working on experimental ship modifications. She was one of only 12 humans in the entire Galactic Defense Force, and Marcus had specifically requested her assignment when he learned about her innovative approach to starship design. Captain Torvin, Marcus said, as he reviewed their mission briefing, what's the status on our ship modifications? Lisa looked up from her technical displays, her expression excited. The kinetic weapon mounts are installed and tested. I've replaced 2 of our plasma cannon batteries with railgun systems firing tungsten projectiles. They're not as flashy as energy weapons, but they hit a lot harder. The modifications had been controversial among the engineering staff. Railguns were considered obsolete technology, abandoned by most species in favor of energy weapons that didn't require physical ammunition. But Marcus had insisted on testing whether kinetic weapons might be effective against pirate vessels. What about the ship's defensive systems? He asked. That's where things get interesting, Lisa replied, bringing up a schematic of the Vanguard. I've installed additional armor plating in critical areas, but I've also reduced our energy shield coverage by 30%. Zextar looked up sharply. You reduced our shields? That seems counterproductive. Not if you understand how the pirates are fighting, Marcus explained. They're using hit-and-run tactics that rely on speed and surprise. Our heavy shields slow us down and require massive energy expenditure to maintain. We're trading some defensive capability for increased maneuverability. Dr. Valana had been analyzing intelligence reports from recent pirate attacks. Colonel, I've identified a pattern in their strike locations. The pirates appear to be targeting specific types of cargo shipments. Medical supplies, rare metals, and most notably weapons shipments. They're building something, Korthak rumbled, his massive hands clenched into fists. These aren't random raids for profit. They're gathering specific resources. Marcus studied the tactical display showing pirate attack locations across 3 star systems. Dr. Valana, what's your assessment of their overall strategy? Based on the cargo they're targeting and their attack patterns, I believe they're attempting to establish a permanent base of operations. Somewhere in the outer rim where they can repair ships, build weapons, and train new recruits. The implications were troubling. Pirates with a secure base could operate indefinitely, eventually growing strong enough to threaten entire star systems. The Galactic Defense Force needed to locate and destroy this base before it became fully operational. Sir, Zextar announced from his position at the communications console, we're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Korax. The Admiral's image appeared on the main display, his scaled features grim. Colonel Kane, we've received disturbing intelligence about your target. The Shadow Commander has begun recruiting from the displaced populations on former mining worlds. Our estimates suggest his force has grown to over 200 ships. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. 200 ships was no longer a pirate band. It was a small navy. Admiral, do we have any indication of their ultimate goals? Intelligence suggests they're planning something called Operation Liberation. We don't know the details, but intercepted communications mention strikes against major galactic trade routes and possibly inhabited systems. The bridge fell silent as the officers absorbed this information. They were no longer hunting ordinary pirates. They were facing an organized rebellion that could threaten the stability of galactic civilization. Your orders remain the same, Admiral Korax continued. Locate their base and neutralize the threat. But Colonel, be aware that you may be facing an enemy force significantly larger than originally anticipated. After the transmission ended, Marcus gathered his officers in the ship's briefing room. The walls were covered with star charts, intelligence reports, and tactical analyses that Dr. Vallana had prepared. All right, people, let's talk about how we're going to hunt down 200 enemy ships with one frigate. Shouldn't we request additional ships? Zextar asked. Even with unconventional tactics, we're severely outnumbered. More ships would just make us easier to detect, Marcus replied. Remember, we're not trying to fight their entire fleet at once. We're trying to locate their base and neutralize their command structure. He activated a holographic display showing the Outer Rim territories. Korthak, you've fought in this region before. What can you tell me about potential base locations? The massive Saurian studied the star chart with tactical eyes. The Outer Rim has dozens of abandoned mining systems. Many have asteroid fields that could hide a fleet, and some still have partially functional facilities that could be converted for military use. Dr. Vallana highlighted several systems on the display. Based on the pirates' operational range and the resources they've been stealing, I've identified 7 possible locations for their main base. That's still a lot of territory to cover, Lysa pointed out. Even with our improved engines, it would take weeks to search all those systems. Marcus smiled grimly. Then we don't search. We make them come to us. The other officers looked puzzled, so Marcus began explaining a concept that was central to human military thinking. The ambush. In human warfare, when you're outnumbered, you don't chase the enemy. You make the enemy chase you, and you choose where the chase ends. He highlighted a major shipping route that connected the inner systems to the Outer Rim. The pirates have been avoiding this route because it's too heavily defended. But what if those defenses suddenly weakened? Understanding dawned on Zextar's blue features. You want to use ourselves as bait? Exactly. We disguise the Vanguard as a damaged freighter carrying valuable cargo. When the pirates attack, we'll be ready for them. But more importantly, we'll be able to track them back to their base. That's an extremely dangerous plan, Dr. Vallana observed. If our disguise fails or if they send more ships than we can handle, we'll be trapped. Korthak's eyes gleamed with anticipation. It's also the kind of plan that might actually work. The pirates have grown confident because they've been winning easily. They won't expect a trap. Marcus looked around the table at his diverse crew of alien officers. I won't lie to you. This mission could get us all killed. If anyone wants to transfer out, I'll understand. Nobody moved. Despite their different species and backgrounds, they had all come to respect the old humans' tactical knowledge and unconventional approach to warfare. All right then, Marcus said, standing up. Let's go hunting. Over the next 3 days, Captain Torvin worked with the engineering crew to modify the Vanguard's appearance. External hull plates were repositioned to simulate battle damage. False cargo containers were attached to create the appearance of a heavily loaded freighter, and the ship's energy signature was altered. To mask its true identity, Dr. Vallana prepared false manifest records showing a cargo of rare crystals and medical supplies, exactly the type of shipment that pirates had been targeting. The ship's identification was changed to the merchant vessel Golden Horizon, supposedly operated by a small trading company. As they entered the shipping lane where they hoped to encounter pirates, Marcus couldn't help but think about the irony of his situation. 6 months ago, he had been a forgotten old soldier nearing retirement. Now he was commanding alien officers in a mission that could determine the fate of galactic trade. "Contacts on sensors," Zextar announced, his voice tense with excitement. 3 ships approaching from the asteroid field. Configuration matches known pirate vessels. "This is it, people," Marcus said calmly. "Remember, we're a helpless freighter until they get close enough. Then we show them what humans call a nasty surprise." The hunt was about to begin. The 3 pirate ships approached with the confidence of predators who had never encountered serious resistance. Their vessels were a mix of different designs: a converted Altarian scout ship, a modified Valerian transport, and what appeared to be a cobbled-together fighter built from salvaged parts. "They're hailing us," Zextar reported from the communication station. "Standard pirate demands: surrender and prepare to be boarded." Marcus nodded to Dr. Vallana, who activated the prepared response. Her voice took on a frightened civilian tone as she replied to the pirates. "Please don't hurt us. We're just cargo haulers. Take whatever you want." Through the viewports, they could see the lead pirate ship moving into position. Its weapon ports were open, energy signatures building as it prepared to disable their engines if they tried to flee. "Captain Torvin," Marcus said quietly, "are our special modifications ready?" "Railguns are charged and targeted," Lysa replied, her hands hovering over the concealed weapon controls. "Armor plates are in position, and our real engines are ready for full acceleration." The pirate ships had arranged themselves in the classic pattern that Dr. Vallana had identified from previous attacks. 1 vessel above, 1 below, and 1 directly ahead. It was designed to prevent escape and provide overlapping fields of fire. "Freighter Golden Horizon," came a harsh voice over the communication channel. "Reduce speed and extend your docking clamps. Any attempt to flee will result in destruction." Marcus waited until all 3 ships were within optimal range. The pirates were so confident that they had moved closer than military vessels would ever dare, expecting no resistance from a helpless cargo ship. "Now," Marcus said calmly. The Vanguard transformed in seconds. False hull plates fell away, revealing hidden weapon mounts. Railgun turrets emerged from concealed positions and immediately began firing tungsten projectiles at incredible velocity. The ship's real engines ignited, sending them accelerating away from the trap. The lead pirate ship took 3 railgun hits before its captain even realized they were under attack. The kinetic projectiles punched through its energy shields like they weren't there, tearing through hull plating that was designed to resist plasma weapons. The ship began venting atmosphere and spinning out of control. "Impossible," came a shocked voice over the pirate communication channel. "They're using kinetic weapons. All ships, scatter formation." But Marcus had anticipated this response. "Korthak, execute Maneuver 7. The massive Saurian had been cross-trained on human naval tactics during their preparation. He brought the Vanguard into a sharp turn that used their momentum to swing around behind the 2nd pirate ship, keeping it between them and the 3rd vessel. "Their shields can't stop our projectiles," Lysa announced with satisfaction as she fired another railgun volley. "But they're learning fast. The 3rd ship is trying to maintain distance." The 2nd pirate ship attempted to return fire, but its plasma weapons were designed for the long-range exchanges typical of galactic warfare. At close range, with the Vanguard moving unpredictably, most of the energy beams missed their target entirely. Marcus studied the tactical display as the engagement continued. "Dr. Vallana, what's your assessment of their communication patterns?" "They're definitely reporting to a higher command," she replied, monitoring the intercepted transmissions. "Multiple references to something called Base 7 and requests for reinforcement." "Perfect. Zextar, can you trace their communication signals?" The Valerian officer worked quickly at his sensor station. "I'm getting a directional fix, but it's going to take time to triangulate their base location." The 3rd pirate ship had finally realized that energy weapons were ineffective against their mysterious opponent. Instead of continuing the fight, its captain made a tactical decision that Marcus had been hoping for. "They're withdrawing," Korthak reported, "running for the outer system at maximum velocity." "Let them go," Marcus ordered, much to the surprise of his officers. "But keep them on sensors as long as possible." Zextar looked confused. Sir, shouldn't we pursue and destroy them? They'll report our capabilities to their commanders. That's exactly what I want them to do, Marcus replied. We just demonstrated that kinetic weapons can defeat their standard ships. Their leaders will want to analyze this new threat, which means they'll be gathering information about us. Dr. Villana began to understand. You're using our own attack as bait for a larger operation? Right. They'll want to study our tactics and weapons, maybe even capture our ship for examination. That means they'll send a larger force to hunt us down. Over the next several hours, they monitored pirate communication, traffic while following the fleeing ship at extreme sensor range. Dr. Villana's analysis confirmed that their attack had caused significant concern among pirate leadership. Colonel, she reported, I'm detecting increased communication activity across multiple systems. They're definitely coordinating some kind of response. Captain Torvin had been analyzing the damage from their brief engagement. Our railguns performed better than expected. The kinetic projectiles penetrated their shields and armor with minimal energy expenditure. We could probably engage a dozen ships their size before running out of ammunition. What about their weapons? Marcus asked. Any damage to our systems? Minor hull scoring from plasma hits, but our additional armor absorbed most of the impact. The reduced energy shielding was actually an advantage. We didn't waste power trying to stop weapons that couldn't seriously damage us anyway. Korthak was studying sensor readings from the engagement. Colonel, I noticed something interesting about their ship designs. They're using hybrid technology, combining systems from different species rather than standardized galactic equipment. That supports the intelligence about their leadership, Marcus mused. Whoever this shadow commander is, he's thinking beyond traditional galactic military doctrine. 6 hours after the engagement, their patience was rewarded. Zextar detected a large group of ships moving through hyperspace toward their current position. 12 vessels, he reported. Mixed configuration, but definitely military grade. They're dropping out of hyperspace in formation. This is a coordinated attack force. Marcus felt a surge of adrenaline as he realized they had successfully drawn out a significant portion of the pirate fleet. All stations prepare for combat. This is what we came for. The pirate force that emerged from hyperspace was unlike anything they had seen before. The ships were organized in a proper military formation, with heavy cruisers providing fire support for smaller escort vessels. Someone with real tactical knowledge was commanding this operation. They're not attacking immediately, Dr. Villana observed. They're taking time to analyze our ship and deploy countermeasures. A new voice came over the communication channel, calm and confident. Unknown vessel, you have demonstrated impressive capabilities. I am Commander Vex of the Liberation Fleet. Surrender now, and your crew will be treated as prisoners of war rather than criminals. Marcus took the communication himself. Commander Vex, this is Colonel Kane of the Galactic Defense Force. We're here to offer you the chance to surrender. Silence stretched across space as both commanders evaluated their opponent. Finally, Commander Vex responded with what might have been amusement. Colonel, you're outnumbered 12-1. Your impressive demonstration against our patrol ships won't save you against coordinated fleet tactics. We'll see about that, Marcus replied. But first, I'm curious about something. You're not fighting like ordinary pirates. Where did you learn military coordination? The same place you learned to use kinetic weapons effectively, Colonel. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. The communication ended, leaving Marcus with a troubling realization. Commander Vex had recognized his tactics and weapons as specifically human in origin. Either the pirates had human advisors, or their leadership included someone with detailed knowledge of human military history. Sir, Zextar announced urgently. They're moving to surround us. Classic fleet engagement pattern. Marcus smiled grimly. Then it's time to show them why humans don't fight fleet engagements. The real battle was about to begin, and everything they had learned about unconventional warfare would be put to the ultimate test. Marcus watched the pirate fleet deploy into an attack formation that would have been textbook perfect in any galactic naval academy. The 12 ships moved with precision, their commanders clearly expecting a traditional exchange of fire between opposing forces. They're trying to force us into a conventional engagement, he told his officers. Zextar, what's our maximum acceleration? With Captain Torvin's modifications, we can achieve acceleration rates 30% higher than standard for our ship class, the Valerian replied. And our railgun range? Effective range is significantly longer than their plasma weapons, Lisa reported. Kinetic projectiles don't lose energy over distance the way plasma bolts do. Marcus studied the tactical display, noting how the pirate ships were arranged. They're using standard fleet tactics, which means they expect us to either run or fight according to Galactic military doctrine. Dr. Villana, start recording everything. Admiral Korax will want to see exactly how this engagement unfolds. The lead pirate cruiser opened fire first, sending streams of plasma toward the vanguard. But Marcus had no intention of standing still to exchange shots. Korthak, evasive pattern Delta. Keep us moving unpredictably. The Saurian warriors' massive hands moved across the helm controls with surprising delicacy, sending their ship into a series of random course changes that made targeting extremely difficult. Meanwhile, Lisa began firing railgun salvos at maximum range, her tungsten projectiles crossing space faster than the pirates could react. Direct hit on their lead cruiser, she announced. Their shields couldn't stop the kinetic impact, but Commander Vex adapted quickly. All ships dispersed formation. Don't give them a concentrated target. The pirate fleet spread out across a much wider area, forcing the vanguard to choose individual targets while exposing themselves to crossfire from multiple directions. Clever, Marcus admitted. He's learning from our tactics in real time. Sir, Zextar called out urgently. 4 ships are moving to flank us while the others maintain fire. They're trying to box us in. This was the critical moment. In conventional galactic warfare, a single ship surrounded by enemies would be forced to surrender or be destroyed. But Marcus had been studying the tactical situation with the eye of someone who had learned warfare in the crucible of human conflict. Captain Torvin, prepare for ramming speed toward the nearest asteroid field. Sir? Lisa looked confused. That will put us closer to their ships, not farther away. Exactly. In space, everyone thinks three-dimensionally, but they still think like they're fighting on a flat surface. We're going to use the environment against them. The vanguard accelerated directly toward the densest part of the nearby asteroid field, with the pirate ships pursuing. To outside observers, it looked like a desperate attempt to escape that would only result in the human ship destroying itself against the floating rocks. But Marcus had noticed something about the asteroid field that the pirates had missed. The gravitational interactions between the larger asteroids created predictable movement patterns that could be exploited by someone willing to take enormous risks. Korthak, I need you to thread us through the asteroid field at maximum velocity. Use the gravitational wells to slingshot us around the larger rocks. The massive Saurian's predatory grin showed his appreciation for the dangerous maneuver. Now this is real combat. The vanguard plunged into the asteroid field with the pirate ships following. But while the pirates were forced to slow down and navigate carefully to avoid collisions, Marcus used the asteroids as cover and acceleration points. Railguns ready, Lisa announced. I have clear shots at 3 enemy vessels. Fire when ready, but keep us moving. Don't give them a chance to coordinate their return fire. The kinetic projectiles ricocheted off asteroid surfaces, creating unpredictable flight paths that struck pirate ships from unexpected angles. Meanwhile, when the pirates tried to return fire, their plasma bolts either missed entirely or struck asteroids instead of their target. Brilliant, Dr. Villana exclaimed as she analyzed the tactical situation. You're using the asteroids as both shields and ricocheting surfaces. Their weapons can't match this kind of environmental combat. Commander Vex's voice came over the communication channel, no longer calm and confident. All ships withdraw from the asteroid field. Maintain perimeter and wait for them to emerge, but Marcus had no intention of emerging. Zextar, start scanning for the largest asteroid in the field. I want something at least 5 kilometers across. Found one, the Valerian reported. Approximately 8 kilometers long, irregular shape, appears to be mostly iron and rock. Perfect. Take us inside. The other officers stared at him in shock. Inside, sir? Zextar asked. That asteroid is honeycombed with mining tunnels from when this system was actively worked. We're going to hide inside it and wait for them to come looking for us. Captain Torvin understood immediately. An ambush. They'll have to send ships inside to find us, which means they can't use their numerical advantage. The vanguard carefully maneuvered into one of the larger mining tunnels that penetrated deep into the asteroid. The tunnel was just wide enough for their ship, with numerous side passages that could serve as escape routes or firing positions. Power down to minimum levels, Marcus ordered. We want to be invisible to their sensors. For the next 2 hours, they waited in the darkness of the abandoned mine while the pirate fleet searched the asteroid field. Dr. Villana monitored their communications, providing updates on enemy movements. They're getting frustrated, she reported. Commander Vex is ordering systematic searches of the larger asteroids. Good. Frustration leads to mistakes. Finally, their patience was rewarded. 3 pirate ships approached their hiding place, moving slowly as they scanned for their quarry. They're splitting up to search different tunnel systems, Zextar observed. One ship is heading directly for our position. Marcus smiled grimly. Then let's give them a warm welcome. As the first pirate ship entered the tunnel system, the Vanguard emerged from a side passage directly behind it. At point-blank range, their railguns tore through the enemy vessel's rear shields and engines before the pirates even knew they were there. The second ship, hearing the explosion, came rushing to investigate, only to find the Vanguard waiting in ambush at a tunnel intersection. Another precise railgun volley disabled it before it could retreat. 2 down, Lysa announced with satisfaction. The third ship is trying to back out of the asteroid field. Let them go, Marcus ordered. They need to report what happened here. Commander Vex's voice came over the communication channel, and this time there was grudging respect in his tone. Colonel Kane, you've demonstrated remarkable tactical innovation, but you're still outnumbered, and you can't hide in asteroids forever. You're right, Commander, Marcus replied. So here's what I propose. Single combat. Your best ship against mine. Winner takes all. Silence stretched across space as the pirate commander considered this offer. Finally, he responded, And if I refuse? Then I'll keep picking off your ships one by one until you don't have a fleet left. You've already lost 3 vessels and learned that your conventional tactics don't work against us. How many more ships are you willing to sacrifice? The pause was longer this time. When Commander Vex spoke again, his voice carried the weight of a difficult decision. Very well, Colonel. Single combat it is, but I choose the location. Agreed. Where do you want to settle this? The open space near the 4th planet. No asteroids, no environmental advantages. Just ship against ship, commander against commander. Marcus looked around at his officers, seeing determination mixed with concern in their alien faces. They had come this far using unconventional tactics and superior firepower. But now they would face their most dangerous opponent in direct combat. Understood, Commander. We'll meet you there in 1 hour. As the Vanguard emerged from the asteroid field and set course for the designated combat zone, Marcus couldn't help but think about the irony of his situation. He had spent his entire career learning to fight against impossible odds, and now he was about to put that knowledge to the ultimate test. The final confrontation with the mysterious Shadow Commander was about to begin. The ship that emerged to face them in single combat was unlike any vessel in the Galactic database. It appeared to be built from components salvaged from dozens of different species technologies, welded together with an engineer's eye for functionality rather than aesthetic appeal. But despite its cobbled-together appearance, the ship moved with lethal grace. Analysis complete, Dr. Villana reported, her voice tense with concentration. That vessel incorporates draconian heavy armor, cerebral targeting systems, ethereal matter manipulation fields, and what appears to be human kinetic weapon technology. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Human weapons? Are you certain? The railgun signatures are identical to our own modifications. Whoever built that ship has studied human military technology extensively. As the 2 vessels maneuvered into position, Commander Vex opened a direct communication channel. For the first time, they could see their opponent's face on the main display. The figure that appeared was unmistakably human, but aged beyond his apparent years by the harsh realities of life in the Outer Rim. His hair was gray, his face was lined with scars, and his eyes held the cold calculation of someone who had fought too many desperate battles. Colonel Kane, he said, his voice carrying a slight accent that Marcus couldn't quite place. I must admit I'm impressed. It's been a long time since I faced an opponent who truly understood warfare. You're human, Marcus stated, studying the man's features. How did you end up leading pirates in the Outer Rim? Commander Vex smiled bitterly. The same way you ended up training aliens to fight like humans, I imagine. Circumstances beyond our control. He paused, then added, My name is Colonel James Morrison, formerly of the Earth Colonial Marines. officially listed as killed in action during the Proxima Centauri incident 15 years ago. The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. He knew that incident, had read the classified reports. Morrison had been commanding a forward reconnaissance unit that had been cut off behind enemy lines during humanity's first contact with a hostile alien species. His unit had been presumed dead when their base was overrun. "Morrison," Marcus breathed, "your unit held off 3,000 enemy fighters with only 50 men. How did you survive?" "By learning that sometimes survival means abandoning everything you once believed in." Morrison's expression hardened. "The Colonial Marines wrote us off, Kane. Left us to die while they negotiated a peace treaty with the same aliens who had slaughtered my people." The revelation cast the entire conflict in a new light. The Shadow Commander wasn't just a pirate leader. He was a human soldier who had been abandoned by his own command, forced to survive in hostile alien territory by building his own army from the outcasts and criminals of the galaxy. "So you turned to piracy," Marcus said, his voice carefully neutral. "I turned to necessity," Morrison replied. "Do you have any idea what it's like to watch your species celebrated as the newest member of galactic civilization while you're forgotten in some alien prison camp?" "I built this fleet from nothing, Kane. Gave hope to beings that the great galactic powers had discarded." Zextar looked confused by the conversation. "Colonel Kane, you know this human?" "By reputation," Marcus answered. He was one of the finest tactical officers in human military history. His theoretical work on asymmetric warfare was required reading at the Academy. Morrison's ship began moving into an attack position, its hybrid weapons charging with ominous energy signatures. "I've read your file too, Kane. Mars Campaign, Asteroid Belt Conflicts, the Titan Rebellion. You were always better at conventional warfare than I was. But you were always better at improvisation," Marcus admitted. "Then this should be interesting." The battle began with an exchange of kinetic weapons that would have amazed any observer familiar with traditional galactic warfare. Both ships used their railguns with devastating precision, but their armor had been specifically designed to absorb kinetic impacts. Morrison's vessel was faster and more maneuverable, using modifications that pushed propulsion technology beyond safe parameters. But the Vanguard's weapons were more advanced. Captain Torvin's engineering providing superior rate of fire and targeting accuracy. "He's using the same tactics we developed against galactic fleets," Korthak observed as Morrison's ship executed a series of unpredictable maneuvers. "Of course he is," Marcus replied. "We both learned warfare in the same schools." The engagement continued for nearly an hour, neither ship able to gain a decisive advantage. Morrison's experience with desperate survival situations was matched by Marcus's systematic tactical approach. They circled each other like ancient duelists, probing for weaknesses while respecting their opponent's capabilities. "Colonel," Dr. Villana announced, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups from his ship. He's charging some kind of weapon that's not in our database." Morrison's voice came over the communication channel. "Kane, I'm about to demonstrate why the Proxima Centauri incident was classified. Are you familiar with the concept of a singularity torpedo?" Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. A singularity torpedo was theoretical technology that used controlled gravitational collapse to create devastating localized effects. The weapon had been banned by every civilized species because of its potential for catastrophic damage. "Morrison, that weapon is illegal under galactic law. Using it could destabilize this entire star system." "Galactic law," Morrison laughed bitterly. "The same law that abandoned my unit to die? I've moved beyond such considerations, Kane." But as Morrison prepared to fire his ultimate weapon, something unexpected happened. Captain Torvin's voice crackled over the ship's communication system. "Colonel Morrison, this is Captain Lysa Torvin, human engineer. Before you fire that torpedo, you should know that I've been analyzing your ship's power systems. Your fusion reactors are operating beyond safe parameters, and a singularity torpedo discharge could cause a cascade failure." Morrison paused, his targeting system still locked on the Vanguard. "What are you suggesting, Captain?" "I'm suggesting that we're both humans who have seen too much war. Maybe it's time to consider whether we're fighting the right enemy." Marcus understood what Lisa was offering. "Morrison, you've built an impressive force out here. But instead of using it against galactic civilization, why not use it to protect human interests within that civilization?" "You're offering me amnesty?" "I'm offering you a chance to come home." For long moments, the two ships hung motionless in space while Morrison considered this offer. His fleet waited in the distance, ready to resume the battle if their commander gave the order. Finally, Morrison's voice came over the communication channel, quieter now and filled with emotions he had suppressed for years. "Kane, do you really think the Galactic Defense Force would accept someone like me? Someone who's spent 15 years building a criminal empire? I think they need someone like you," Marcus replied honestly. "Someone who understands unconventional warfare and can train others to think beyond traditional doctrine." Dr. Valana looked up from her sensor station. "Colonel Kane, I'm detecting multiple hyperspace signatures approaching the system. Admiral Corax's fleet is arriving." Morrison's ship immediately began powering down its weapons. "It seems our private duel is about to become a public affair." The massive forms of galactic battleships began emerging from hyperspace, their weapons trained on Morrison's fleet. Admiral Corax's flagship, the Dominion, took position between the two smaller vessels. "Colonel Kane," came the Admiral's voice over the communication system, "report your status." "Admiral, I'm pleased to report that the pirate threat has been neutralized. Colonel Morrison and his fleet are prepared to discuss terms of integration into the Galactic Defense Force." Silence stretched across space as the implications of this statement sank in. Admiral Corax had come expecting to find a destroyed human ship, or a victorious pirate fleet. Instead, he found two human officers who had apparently resolved their conflict through negotiation rather than combat. "Colonel Morrison," the Admiral said finally, "you are wanted by galactic authorities for numerous crimes against interstellar commerce." Morrison's response was calm and measured. "Admiral, I am a human military officer who has spent 15 years in exile building a force capable of protecting human interests in galactic space. If you're prepared to discuss how that force might serve legitimate purposes, I'm prepared to listen." Marcus smiled as he realized what had happened. The confrontation that should have ended in destruction had instead become an opportunity to bring a skilled human commander and his experienced fleet into the service of galactic civilization. "Admiral," Marcus said, "I request permission to escort Colonel Morrison to Kepler Station for debriefing and integration discussions." Admiral Corax's response took several minutes to arrive, and when it came, it carried the weight of a decision that would change galactic military doctrine forever. "Permission granted, Colonel Kane. It appears that human approaches to warfare continue to surprise us all." As the combined fleet set course for Kepler Station, Marcus reflected on the chain of events that had brought them to this moment. An old human soldier had been mocked for carrying primitive weapons, but those weapons had led to tactical innovations that revolutionized galactic military thinking.